Welcome to a true spiritual adventure story like the world has never known. Volume 1, Living the Enlightened Life, with your host, Dr. James Yogadhi Weldon. Drugs and madness, and then a door opens. And I'm openly exploring kind of the difficulties I go through in my spiritual search. This is a really crazy time in my life. You know, we all have very, very difficult times, and there are two really major ones. There's something associated with in astrology, Saturn, that occurs every 40 years in one's life. I'm actually passing through that pattern at this time in my life. Everything is totally just completely falling apart. I enter through that time. It's entitled Drugs and Madness. And then a door opens. Seat of my soul, sparkling beyond the reach of time, revolving like the earth, slowly turning forever beyond itself. I roamed a billion years, cried a million tears, a million times for your sight, for your presence, and all the time you were mine. So my best friend and a new girlfriend and I are living together now in a small clapboard house near the campus of the university, Florida State University, in Tallahassee, Florida, USA. And I settled down finally to one girlfriend because I'm really tired of the many relationships. It's a lot of effort to try to create these again and again. I'm 20 years old. And one evening I'm invited to a party across town, and my girlfriend doesn't want to go, and my friend has other things to do. I come home early because of a really bad headache. And lately I'm feeling unstable because of unfortunately use of pot. I just can't take it anymore. Something within me is finally rebelling from all the abuse, and I head for home. And when I walk into my house, they weren't expecting me to come home. I walk straight into our bedroom only to find my now best friend and my girlfriend in bed together. I catch them there, and we look at each other in horror and disbelief, and I can't believe it. How can this be? I'm in complete shock. And my girlfriend quickly gets up and dresses and leaves in shame. My best friend stays for a while and we talk, and he apologizes again and again, and it's clear what happened. Under the influence of alcohol and drugs in that state, they basically couldn't control themselves, and one thing leads to another, and they end up having a relationship. These actions are completely devastating me. For the next week, I'm wandering around the campus, very deep despair, and I can't even go home at night except to sleep. My friend finally finds me, suggests I meet with my girlfriend, maybe to patch things up, and I agree to meet her again. And when we meet, naturally, she apologizes and suggests we go for the weekend, saying, "Oh, I have some terrific LSD." She says, "Why don't we take a vacation?" And I resist going because it's really becoming difficult for me to keep my bearings under the influence of some of these drugs. As we drive along, I feel as if everything is closing in. I'm sick to my stomach, and we haven't taken anything yet. I have a bad feeling about this visit and this trip, and we head for the Florida coast. Perhaps the fresh ocean air will help, I say. And about 6 o'clock that evening, we stop for the night, and after hauling our luggage into the room, we settle down for our evening adventure. At 7 a.m., we take the LSD, and slowly I slip off into a dreamy state. Gradually, the room begins to look very strange, and every shadow is sinister, and the candlelight flickers with an ominous glow. My girlfriend looks strange, and we were both lying basically without clothes in bed, and through the gloom she stares at me with beady eyes, and I'm just seeing evil. And with long stringy hair, she resembles to me in that state a witch. And suddenly the panic just totally takes off within me, and my heart starts galloping out of control. Anybody who's fiddling with these areas, you need to be really, don't do it, first of all, obviously. And secondly, you don't know what you're getting. And fear is permeating every pore of my body. And I feel like a rat caught in a cage. I feel everything closing in, and I'm struggling to control. And I lose consciousness of the room. Before me, I see a swirl of darkness, like a giant funnel cloud coming to consume me. I know what this is from my childhood. It's from my past life. Death again is coming my way. If you've had a chance to read earlier in the book, the early chapters, and again, I encourage you to read those, I had flashbacks and experience of a very difficult time. Actually, I learned later it was from being in Tibet. In an earlier life, I'm telling you guys, I remember these things. They were very powerful, but in this deep state, some of this tremendous fear had come again, and my body leaps up off the bed in involuntary reflex. All I want to do is escape from this madness, the death that I'm feeling consuming my mind. So completely out of control, I unconsciously slap my girlfriend. My body appears literally to hang in the air for a moment, and then everything turns upside down, and losing all sense of direction between the inside and the outside of my mind. The world outside completely vanishes, and everything in my head as if spills out into that giant space. So with my heart pounding out of control, I let out a terrible wail. My feet find the floor, and I race out the door into the darkness beyond. And the last thing I can remember is my girlfriend's face contorting in the darkness, screaming my name, but I hear nothing. A sound like rolling thunder pounds through my mind. An energy rush, like the rush of the wind, sweeps through my consciousness, driving me out of my body into the vast space beyond. The dark swirling funnel, into the dark swirl funnel I go, like a dark fluid sucked down the drain. In an instant, my body and my mind, memory, connection with the world are completely gone. I do not have the slightest memory of who I am. All I know is that I'm separated from my body, mind, and everything, alone and free at last. My body is running off into the darkness, leaving me behind. The body is an animal mad, like an animal caught in the headlights of a car, fleeing to protect itself. My body runs and leaps on its own, and I am no longer there in the body. My body races off in the darkness, leaving me behind. I had pushed my life at this point to the limit, and it had rebelled. My mind had snapped under the strain and let me go. And I find myself now floating in space without the body, and a revelation comes. The shattering of my awareness shows me without a doubt that I'm something other than my body and its limited mind. I realize in that moment that I am something infinitely greater than the body. Occasionally, the outside world creeps in, and I hear a few sounds of actually sirens and flashing lights. And I remember just before I raced out of the room, I screamed, "God, save me." In that place beyond the body, I'm nothing, nothing at all. In all directions at once, I'm seeing in all directions. I see that nothing, that nothingness spreading out forever. I stand both inside and outside of an infinitesimal viewpoint, point that rises up before me like a sheet of glass, a mirror reflecting myself. Then the mirror shatters, explodes into infinite peace. Each piece carries me with it, rushing out into all directions, yet I remain completely still, like a supernova that carries those shards in every direction. I am looking at that scene through a giant telescope. I am removed from everything like a spectator in some vast game. At the same time, I am the drama that is unfolding. In that instant, the universe unfolds before me in great detail. Those tiny pieces of glass emerge and become everything in my world. The sun, the moon, the stars, the galaxy, my home, all of my life appears at once, comes back. Slowly I dissolve into that universe. It's like being cut up into a billion pieces. I hear a tearing, wrenching sound like rough scissors cutting me up. Each piece becomes part of the universe. But in that moment, I see myself as God, sacrificing, splintering into everything that is. I see that God and the universe are one. Then that vision dissolves and I melt into deep sleep. I wake later to find myself actually in a jailed cell. A blanket has been thrown over my body. My body is scratched and bruised in many places, but it doesn't mean anything to me. I've touched the infinite somehow, and when I was thrown out of my body because of that, I am at peace. Later that morning, I'm released from jail. I'm frightened as I realize that what happened, I came far, far too close to the fire. You guys, don't play with this. I know that this is the last time I will ever use LSD, anything like this, because it came much, much too close to death. This is also obviously the end of my relationship with this girl. She's afraid of me, and I understand that. You know, I don't blame her. We see each other a few times, Then she graduates from college and moves to South Florida. She tells me how close to death I was. When you ran off into the dark, you ran down the highway, cars had to swerve to avoid hitting you. I had no consciousness of this. Someone called the police and they arrived. They chased you through the forest and finally caught you. And they handcuffed me. I have no memory of this, my hands and my feet, yet I continued to run away. At that point, she's saying the police drew their guns during that time and could have easily shot you when you fought to get away. Hearing this story frightened me, but I knew that at that time I was no longer in the body. If I had been killed, I would have felt nothing, because I was no longer in there. After that event, something has changed. I saw the world through new eyes. Perhaps I did go crazy during those moments, but I believe now that grace once again had come into my life and given me a peek into the enlightened mind. Immediately, I become interested in school again. I join a new group of friends. We talk about deeper topics. What is life about? Why are we here? What are we going to do with our lives? My anti-war movement activity stops. Consequently, my life becomes immediately a lot simpler. I see that there's an enormous amount of negativity directed towards the government in that anti-war movement. A whole generation hates their country and its way of life. I have enough craziness within me without taking on the whole world's madness as well. Particularly my hatred now of the police is gone. My experience of being arrested changes all of that. While in jail that morning, a policeman comes in and really talks to me, and he really shows concern. The police could have charged me on a number of counts. It would have been so easily to prosecute me, but they didn't. In fact, all the charges were dropped. An attorney appeared from nowhere. I don't know who he was to represent me. I never met that attorney, and he never charged me a dime. It seems as though the police owed him a favor. They simply let me go without even a hearing. Over the next few months, I contemplate my experience that night. Something happened that evening that I couldn't explain. Something much larger than my problems touched me. After many years, I begin to pray again and think of God at night. During those prayers, my mind goes back to that feeling of the divinity, the universe that I felt at that night. For the first time, I notice that a few spiritual movements are starting around me. During the anti-war time, a new element emerges on our campus: spiritual teachers from India. One morning, I see a picture of an Indian teacher on posters around the campus. And there's something about his eyes that I can't quite understand. It's as if there's a peace there that I see, a calmness that I hadn't seen before. Every time I walk by these posters, I feel as if those eyes are following me. I chalk it up to my imagination. What could there be for me in all of this? No one that I'd ever met knew an Indian guru. The concept is completely foreign. By the way, there's no yoga, there's no practices, nothing at all available I'd ever seen or ever been on our campus before. Still, I decided to go to a lecture with this Eastern meditation and see what it's about. Unfortunately, the lecture is already over and gone. So I show up and there's nobody there. There are no more posters on campus, so I forget all about it. One day I'm lying on the campus green watching the leaves fall, and the ground is covered with a multitude cloak of these leaves. Fall has come. The days of my life are like these dying leaves. All that I have known and trust is gone. Where it remains is nothing. I'm a tree in a winter storm, bare before the universe. This is an important time in my life. I feel I'm standing on the point of a giant needle and can fall in either direction. My entire life has been spent climbing to this particular place. I see relationships cannot bring happiness. My many encounters leave me empty. Politics don't help. The political movements are only filled with negativity. The faith that I found, at least for me, were incomplete. At home, nothing is different. My parents' lives show that work does not lead to contentment. Together, we passed through 2 divorces and the death of my father, the alcoholism of my stepfather. Drugs aren't any solution. I went crazy trying drugs. What is there left to try? It's like life is a dream. When will I awake from this dream? I fall asleep watching the flickering light on the campus, watching the leaves drift down towards the ground. Deep in sleep, I find myself all of a sudden in another place, lost in a bleak countryside, walking along a road. The sky is overcast in that dream sleep. It's late in the afternoon and the darkness has descended over the land. Wind is howling across the landscape. In the distance, lightning is flashing and a rainstorm is coming. I look at me wondering where to hide, but there is nowhere, no shelter anywhere. I only see the bleak gray landscape in every direction. Where can I go to escape the downpour that is certainly coming? Suddenly the clouds break and a shaft of light pierces the gloom. I watch as that single beam of light winds across the horizon and crosses my path. For a moment, I feel bathed in its warmth and safety. Then the light moves on down the trail. Running to keep up with the light, I race off into the distance. After running for a while, the light settles in one place ahead of me. I see a set of stairs with no apparent support winding up into the sky to a place of light beyond the clouds. I face a choice. Will I climb the stairs to see what is there, or will I wander off into the darkness of the night? Without a second thought, I trust my intuition and climb the stairs towards the light. The stairs have no handrail. From my very first step, I feel a wonderful relief. As I climb, I muse, how can the stairs exist without support, without a handrail? Won't I fall off and kill myself? Fear fills my mind. Is it possible to reach the end? What will I find there? Round and round the steps wind up into the clouds, like a golden ribbon draped from heaven. Onward I trudge. After a while, I feel relief. The higher I climb, the more light and warmth I feel. The break in the clouds is drawing close. What had looked like a point of light now seems much larger. It is freer there. The mugginess of the day has lifted. I look back and notice how dark it is below. All the years I lived in this world, I never noticed this before. Somehow my eyes had become used to the darkness I never noticed and the extent of the gloom below. Now near the clouds, I see the day seems so full of light and promise. I have no sense of time. How long have I been climbing? It may have been moments, hours, even days. All that I feel is a sense of freedom. My worries now seem to be far away. As I approach the clouds, brightness increases dramatically. I shield my eyes from the brilliance. There's so much light, peace, and harmony in everything. I feel as buoyant as light as the clouds about me. My movements are filled with joy. What is happening to me? As I pass through the clouds, the sun emerges for the first time. My past life has been enveloped in darkness. The whole world is enveloped in darkness. The sun I see clears my mind. It is so intensely bright. I am blinded by what I see. So strong is the vision that I have to look away. Looking around me in the clouds, so beautiful, as far as I can see, there is nothing except limitless sky, the clouds and the earth below. Beyond the clouds, the stairs continue going up forever, it seems, merging into the sun and beyond. The sun shines forever in this place. After what seems an eternity of perfect moments, I stop to rest. I see the earth below. It is enveloped in pristine white clouds from horizon to horizon. How beautiful it looks. How great is the world, enveloped like a dear child snuggling in bed. Then suddenly I wake. I open myself in wonder. I remember a dream like this I had as a young boy in a storm that said so much about my life and what my future would bring. I'm awake now. I'm sitting up on the campus in the university. Is this like that dream, a vision of what is to come? If so, it means something new is coming into my life. I know this insight is true, that I am lost on a barren landscape alone within myself. I wander about the world looking for shelter and find there is none. What of the stairs? I saw a path. Is the shaft of light coming from heaven, the grace of God searching for us, combing this world, seeking a soul? As a child, I see myself wandering through murky water of the hurricane. That vision is over. A new vision now guides my life. Normally, I go home on semester breaks during college. My home was only a few hours drive away from Tallahassee and Cocoa Beach, Florida. And I leave on Friday afternoon, driving through the evening, and arrive early in the morning. This day I'm off early from classes, and I decide to make the trip home. Problem is that my car is broke and I don't have a car. I'd bought a small roadster at this time. It's called a Bug-Eye Sprite, an Austin Healey car. By the way, I tried to get in that same car a few weeks back. I couldn't even get inside. It's so teeny. I really love this car. It's a perfect runabout for me, and it has lots of hidden problems. First of all, the engine needs a major overhaul. The power plant has been bored out so many times, it can't be rebuilt again. Apparently, it was used as a race car at one time. And the engine, by the way, also burns oil by the case. Whenever I take off the car, there's a huge cloud of smoke behind me. It reminds me of the mosquito control trucks when I was a child. When we were a child, we used to run behind those trucks and hide in the clouds of insecticide-filled smoke. We didn't know there was any harm in that, and my car creates that much smoke. A few weeks before, I lent my car to a friend for a test drive. He returns a few hours later on foot, telling me that the car is wrecked. He had stopped on the back country road and is rear-ended by another car. My beautiful car actually is now only 6 feet long. It's crumpled down to about 6 feet long, like an empty pack of cigarettes. And sadly, the tow truck parks a mess in my driveway. Now I'm out of transportation. I decide I'm going to hitchhike home anyway. So I begin my journey with $20, half a pack of cigarettes. I'm actually smoking at this time, and a science fiction novel in my pocket. The sun crawls up to the horizon through the foliage, and I step onto the hot interstate pavement. The wind is blowing in my face in steady gusts. I can't ask for better weather for the trip. Normally, there's no problem in getting a ride. At this time, we're at the height of the hippie movement, and thousands of people are just on the road like me, hitchhiking across the country, their way across the country. Everywhere we are flowing minibuses or touring the countryside. Quickly, I'm picked up by a group of college students on their way to Fort Lauderdale for the traditional spring break party. Fort Lauderdale is actually a favorite place for Florida State University students to go, and they spend their time on the beach, dancing on the bars at night and looking for romance. The minibus is packed. There's just enough room in the back for me, and I'm not carrying any luggage. So as I enter the van, I smell the typical marijuana. The party has already begun. They offer me some pot, and I say, no way. I'm off drugs. Even pot these days is intolerable. There's been a lot for me to think about, and I want my mind to be clear. And I settled into a corner with a girl with long black hair, and we make a connection and enter into a long conversation about life. I'm asking real questions now. I'm asking for an answer. She tells me she recently started a meditation practice that really makes a difference. She said, have you heard of TM, Transcendental Meditation? There's this teacher, the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who taught the Beatles and Mio Farrow, and he's now teaching meditation to a group of instructors all across the United States. A friend of hers that took the course, and she suggested she tried it. She goes on and on about this meditation, sharing all about the scientific research that's underway, and as I watch her talk, something begins to happen. I feel happier and happier. Even though I'd never meditated before, her every word sends me into a meditative state. It's like a bright light that shines suddenly into my mind, and I can't explain it. How can the mere mention of meditation make me feel so happy? I wonder, where can I find out more information? I ask, I look around for posters on campus. I remember those posters. These were the same posters I felt drawn to before. After 45 minutes, it's time for me to get out. I step out of the van stunned by the joy I feel. I feel fantastic, as if a great load had been lifted from my back. Something, a presence, had touched me, showing me the joy that she was talking about. As I stand on the interstate there, I relive the conversation. As we talked, a bubble of understanding connects us and something mysterious opens. I look about the countryside, I see a creamy white light is covering everything. I can't remember such a beautiful feeling. It is as someone I dearly love and haven't seen for ages has suddenly stepped into view. For a few minutes, all my problems have disappeared. An inner door opening, showing me direction. If God himself had hit me on the head with a hammer, I could not have felt more stirred. This time, I promised myself, I'm going to find out about meditation as soon as I return. I can't wait. The heart of my being, your touch is like sunshine. Your joy is like snow falling all around. I am so amazed. How can it be that I ever lost you? Was it a dream? This ignorance? How can it be? I was lost in an endless dream. What foolishness took me away? I know not. All that I know is whatever I see is only your glory. So have a wonderful day. Join me again in the next session. Thanks for joining us in our YouTube channel, books, podcast episodes on living the enlightened life, and autobiography with your host, Dr. James Yogadhi Weldon.